Lesson 48 is on the derivatives of trig functions. What we currently know is that the derivative of sine is cosine and the derivative of cosine is negative sine. And from knowing that, we can develop the derivative of all the other trig functions. Starting with the derivative of tangent. Instead of writing tangent, we could write tangent as sine over cosine. And if I'm asked to find the derivative of sine over cosine, I can do that using quotient rule. So quotient rule says bottom times the derivative of the top minus the top times the derivative of the bottom all over the bottom squared. So let's go ahead and do that. We have the bottom times the derivative of the top, which is cosine, minus the top times the derivative of the bottom, negative sine. And all of that is over cosine squared. If I simplify this, on the top, I have a cosine squared, and I have a negative and negative to make a positive, and it's over a positive sine squared. And if I want to simplify further, I can take and I can split this into two fractions. So instead of having the sum of one fraction, I can make it this fraction here plus this fraction here. And when I do that, I get 1 plus sine squared over cosine squared. And I know that sine squared over cosine squared is the same as tangent squared. And I also know 1 plus tangent squared is equal to secant squared. So through some simple math here, calculus, I can determine that the derivative of tangent is secant squared. This is one of your Pythagorean identities, by the way. So let's try this again, but this time we will do cotangent. We know that cotangent of x is the same as cosine over sine. So I'm going to write it like this, and then again use quotient rule. So the bottom times the derivative of the top minus the top cosine times the derivative of the bottom. And all of that is over the bottom squared. I'm not going to write it like that. I'm going to write it like that. And what I really have is negative sine squared minus cosine squared all over sine squared. And this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to work with just the top. And I almost have sine squared plus cosine squared. And I will have that if I factor out that negative 1. So I have that Pythagorean identity. And that's nice because that's equal to 1. So now I have negative 1 over sine squared, which is the same as cosecant squared, negative. So the derivative of cotangent is negative cosecant squared. When you find the derivative of secant, you want to rewrite that as 1 over cosine. And now doing this, you want to use quotient rule again. So the bottom times the derivative of the top minus the top times the derivative of the bottom all over the bottom squared. That's 0. Negative and negative make a positive. So what we have is we have sine of x over cosine of x times cosine of x. And the reason I'm separating that is because I don't want to have to deal with those squares right now, because I'm going to rewrite this. Sine over cosine is tangent of x. And then I'm going to rewrite this as secant of x. So the derivative of secant is secant times tangent, or tangent x secant x. And you can go ahead and pause the video and try this one, but your starting part is to write this as 1 over sine. And I believe this is also the one on one of your homework problems. And you do it the same as the last time. I'm just going to write the answer here. You get cotangent of x times cosecant of x for an answer. But I'm not going to go through the work, but it's the same as the previous problem. So here's what you must know. You must memorize these derivatives. The derivative of tangent is secant squared. The derivative of secant is secant times tangent. The derivative of cotangent is negative cosecant squared. You have reciprocal functions, tangent and cotangent, and you have some similarities in their derivative. And the last one, the derivative of cosecant is negative cotangent cosecant. And that one also has some similarities to, these two have some similarities together. So you do have to have those memorized and know what they are, because you will be working with the derivatives throughout the rest of the year. Particularly this one here and this one, those are the main ones, but you do need to know them all. And with that, there is your homework assignment that you can submit to Schoology when you're done.